There are models who just walk the runway, and then there are those who kick it down and dare the world to look away. Gia Carangi did the latter. She wasn't just another model, she was a storm in heels. A girl from Philly who crashed into fashion like she owned it, and for a moment, maybe she did. But what happens when someone refuses to play by the rules in an industry built on perfection? What's the cost of being too real, too raw, too vulnerable, too soon? Gia Carangi lit up every lens she stood in front of. Then, just as quickly, she vanished. Was it addiction? Was it the system? Or was it something deeper? Something the industry still doesn't want to talk about? This is the story of the supermodel who broke the mold and paid the price for it. A story fashion tried to bury, but one that refuses to die. Buckle up. This is a crazy deep dive you won't forget. Gia Carangi wasn't born into glamour. She was born into a storm. Philadelphia, 1960. Her father Joe ran a chain of sandwich shops, loud, volatile, and emotionally distant. Her mother Kathleen, young, restless, and aching for something more than domestic chaos. The final rupture came when Joe accused Kathleen of cheating and demanded proof, physically. That night, Kathleen left. Not just the room, the marriage, the house, the kids. Gia was 11. Her brother Michael remembered it clearly. The house turned into chaos. No rules, no structure. Gia was the youngest. The breakup affected her the worst. With her mother gone and her father emotionally checked out, Gia began to shapeshift, trying to earn affection in all the wrong ways. She dressed like her brothers, copied their moves, tried to become one of the boys. Maybe then she thought, Dad will see me. But he didn't. And yet, in the middle of this emotional void, Gia found something. Someone, David Bowie. And through Bowie, she found her people. She fell in with a group of Philly misfits called the Bowie Kids. Gender fluid, wild, queer before the world had a word for it. Gia chopped off her hair, wore men's clothes, flirted shamelessly with girls, and found the first taste of belonging. Gia was the purest lesbian I ever met, one friend said. She was sending girls flowers at 13. Her mother didn't understand. When Kathleen found a love letter Gia had written to a girl, she sent her to a therapist to be corrected. But Gia didn't need fixing. She just needed to be loved for exactly who she was. By 17, Gia had already become a legend in Philadelphia's underground scene. She was a fixture at gay clubs like DCA and Second Story. Bold, flirtatious, walking in like she was on a runway. Even if the floor was sticky and the lights were low, she was magnetic. And it was there that hairstylist Maurice Tannen first spotted her. Maurice wasn't just clubbing, he was scouting. He saw Gia on the dance floor, confident and chaotic, and asked if she'd pose for him. She agreed. The photos he shot of her, sharp cheekbones, intense eyes, cropped hair, weren't polished, but they had heat, energy, something raw. Maurice included them in his portfolio, and eventually, those photos made their way to makeup artist Sandy Linter. Sandy stopped flipping when she hit Gia's photo. She later recalled, "There was this image of her in black and white, and she had this amazing face. I couldn't look away."
You see the movie The Eyes of Laura Mars? This girl did it before the movie. I mean, she really, really was amazing.
I told Wilhelmina she had to meet her. So they called her in. And Gia showed up like no one ever had. No chaperone, no makeup, no prep. Just a teenage girl in ripped jeans and cowboy boots. A switchblade casually tucked into her waistband. And yes, it's true. According to multiple accounts, she really did pull it out in Wilhelmina's lobby and carve her name into the receptionist's desk. It wasn't a PR stunt. It wasn't a pose. That's just who Gia was. Part rebel, part punk, and all presence. Wilhelmina Cooper, the legendary model-turned-agent, was instantly intrigued. She turned to Sandy Linter and said, "Make sure she gets signed." 3 days later, Gia was officially part of Wilhelmina Models. No headshots, no runway training, no polishing. Just raw force and a face that stopped people cold. Her first test shoots were chaotic. Gia didn't yet know how to model the way the others did, but she didn't need to. Even in early shoots, photographers noticed something different. She didn't pose. She moved. One photographer said later, "She had this street-smart energy. She didn't strike a pose. She attacked the camera."
Her face, the way sometimes her face would be a little crooked, like her mouth. I mean, sometimes it was a little tough. Sometimes it would be whatever the spirit was, and it gave back to the picture.
Gia wasn't just another hopeful. She was a force of nature, the kind you don't train, you just try to keep up with. Gia's first professional photo shoot wasn't glamorous. It was awkward, even terrifying. She showed up to the studio and froze. Picture it. A young girl surrounded by statuesque blondes, all legs and angles, perfectly trained in how to turn, smile, deliver that look. Gia? She was none of that. She was panicking until Sandy Linter stepped in. Sandy wasn't just a makeup artist, she was Gia's lifeline in those early days. She calmed her down, handed her a mirror, and told her to breathe. "Look at yourself," she said. That's when it happened. Gia leaned into the mirror, tentative at first, and Sandy, trusting her gut, grabbed a camera and took the shot herself. That image, with Gia's reflection staring back at the lens, became her first breakout. It was published. People noticed. The face had arrived. What was it about her? Maybe it was the contrast. Soft lips, hard stare, or that mix of masculine and feminine energy that didn't just challenge beauty standards, it blew them up. Within weeks, she booked her first paying gig. Then came the moment that really set her apart. A shoot with photographer Lance Stadler. No top, just black jeans, a borrowed leather jacket, and that stare. Stadler remembered thinking, this girl could eat the lens alive. And fashion? Fashion couldn't get enough. By late 1978, Gia was everywhere. Her style, jeans, boots, smudged eyeliner, zero filter, stood out in an industry still clinging to clean, conservative beauty. But one of the most legendary moments? It happened backstage. During a shoot with Francesco Scavullo for a Diana Ross campaign, someone spotted Gia's shredded Levi's. They asked to use them on Ross. After the shoot, Diana herself wanted to keep them. Gia didn't flinch. "No," she said. "Just like that. You can be Diana Ross, but you can't have my jeans." Who says that to a global icon? Gia did. And that right there tells you everything. She didn't follow trends, she was the trend. By 1979, Gia wasn't just booking jobs, she was dominating them. Versace, Dior, Yves Saint Laurent, Vogue, Cosmopolitan. Her face was on so many covers, you'd think she had a printing deal. At her peak, she was earning up to $10,000 a day, the infamous threshold that came to define the top tier of fashion models. Not bad for someone who, a year earlier, was folding hoagies at a Philly deli. Francesco Scavullo once said, "Only 3 girls ever walked into my studio and made me say, wow." Gia was the last.
Suddenly became a new kind of model. She just was like a complete free spirit and very streetwise and marvelous to work with.
And she earned that. When the camera was on, Gia was electric. Not in a fake, polished way, but in a dangerously real way. You couldn't predict her, and that made her unforgettable. So here's the question. Was Gia modeling, or was she doing performance art before anyone used that term? She became so iconic, so fast, that the industry dropped her last name. Just Gia, like Cher, like Madonna. You know you've made it when your first name is a brand. But here's the twist. While Gia was climbing to the top, something else was building beneath the surface. Fame was never going to be enough. And what happens when the high from success fades, and the real highs take its place? While Gia ruled the runways and magazine covers by day, by night she slipped into another world entirely. One of smoke, glitter, and pills. Studio 54, the Mud Club, Limelight. Gia didn't just attend New York's most notorious clubs. She belonged to them. The velvet rope wasn't an obstacle. It was an invitation. She'd slide past it in jeans and a smirk, no entourage needed. Everyone knew if Gia showed up, the night got better. At first, it was all part of the scene. A line here, a pill there. Everyone in fashion was partying. But for Gia, it quickly went deeper. Her grief had a trigger. In March 1980, Wilhelmina Cooper, the woman who believed in Gia from day one, died of lung cancer. Gia was devastated. Wilhelmina wasn't just her agent, she was her anchor, her one maternal figure in an industry built on cold detachment. And when she died, something in Gia broke loose. She kept modeling, sure. She even popped up dancing in Blondie's Atomic music video. But behind the camera, the spiral had already begun. She started showing up late to shoots, or not at all. When she did show up, she was high. There's one story where she passed out mid-session with a lit cigarette in her hand. Another where she vanished during a shoot, still wearing a $10,000 Versace dress, to go score heroin. Then came the infamous Richard Avedon shoot. Full production team, studio booked. Gia was the star. She never showed. That job was worth $5,000. Another model took her place. The crew never forgot it. So here's the real talk. The fashion world will put up with your demons until they start costing money. And even then, Gia was so good, they kept trying to airbrush the damage. Literally. In Vogue's November 1980 issue, her track marks were visible even after retouching. Think about that. They published the photos anyway. So here's a question for you. Was that respect for her talent or proof of how desperate the industry was to keep milking her image? Either way, the writing was on the wall. The girl who had once made cameras fall in love was becoming a liability. By 1981, the charm was cracking, and the industry that once chased her now quietly stepped back. She was dropped by her agency. The bookings slowed, and with nowhere left to crash in New York, Gia went home to Philly, chasing sobriety, or maybe just some kind of reset. She checked into a 21-day detox program. It didn't stick. Then came Rochelle, a college student, also hooked on heroin. Gia fell hard and fast. The relationship was toxic. Together, they spiraled deeper. In spring, Gia was arrested for drunk driving. Then came the thefts, from friends, even family. And yet, she kept trying. That's what people forget. She went back to detox, but then another blow. Chris von Wangenheim, the photographer who shot her most iconic early images, was killed in a car crash. Gia didn't take it well. She locked herself in the bathroom and used for hours. Friends say it wasn't just a relapse, it was her giving up. Years of abuse began to show. Gone was the flawless skin. In its place, abscesses on her hands, cysts on her back, track marks that no amount of makeup could hide. Her eyes looked tired, hollow, like the light was still in there somewhere, but buried deep. And this is where the industry fully backed away. There were no interventions, no check-ins, just silence. So let's ask the uncomfortable question. How many chances would Gia have gotten if mental health had been taken seriously back then? She was still a household name, but behind closed doors, Gia Carangi was just trying to survive. By fall of '81, Gia was back in rehab. Again. This time she meant it. She'd gained weight, looked older than her age, but there was still a spark in her eyes. A piece of her believed she could pull it off. One last shot. She reached out to Monique Pillard, a powerful agent at Elite. Gia sat in her office, sleeves down, voice steady. Monique later recalled, "I said, Gia, I want to represent you so badly, but I keep hearing these horror stories. Tell me, why are you wearing such a long shirt?" Gia didn't blink. She looked her in the eye and said, "Do you want to represent me or not?" That was the gamble. No excuses, no begging, just a challenge. And Monique, despite every red flag, said yes. Gia stayed in Philadelphia and only came to New York for confirmed bookings. Most clients passed, too risky, too fragile. But one man gave her another shot, Francesco Scavullo. He brought her in for one last Cosmopolitan cover in early 1982, her final cover. Scavullo remembered the shoot. "I wanted it to be her best cover." And it wasn't. It couldn't be. That wonderful spirit, what she had, it was gone. The photo says it all. Gia, arms tucked behind her back, face still beautiful, but the spark? Dimmed. As you're hearing this, picture that image. No pose, no attitude, just resignation. What do you see in her face? Regret? Exhaustion? Or maybe just someone trying to hold it together long enough to get through the day? Let us know in the comments, because that photo, for many, was the last time they saw Gia Carangi alive. 1982. Gia agreed to do something she had never done before and would never do again. A television interview. ABC's 2020 was filming a segment on the dark side of modeling. Elite pushed Gia to appear. Maybe it would help clean up her image, maybe it would show the world she was back. But it didn't go that way. She sat down in front of the camera, hair neat, blouse loose, smile. Forced. At first, she played the part. "I started working with very good people," she said calmly. "A lot of work. I mean all the time, very fast. I didn't build into a model, I just sort of became one. But then the interviewer pressed. At one point, you got into the drug scene, didn't you? Gia didn't dodge. Yes, you could say that I did. It kind of creeps up on you and catches you in a world that no one will ever know, except someone that has been there. Are you free of it now? She nodded. Oh yes, I am. Definitely. I wouldn't be here right now talking to you if I wasn't. And yet, something was off. Her voice wavered. Her smile twitched. When asked if she was happy, she hesitated. Well, she said, pausing, I just wanted to think about it. Now I am happy with it. But the eyes said otherwise. It was one of the only times Gia spoke publicly about her struggles. And even then, it was half-coded. You could feel her slipping between what she wanted to say and what she thought people wanted to hear. And that raises the question, if that was Gia trying to convince the world she was fine, who was she trying to convince more, us or herself? By 1983, the comeback dream was over. Gia's modeling career had flatlined. She was caught using drugs on a shoot in North Africa and sent home. No more chances, no more phone calls. Even her name, once shorthand for raw beauty, was quietly erased from casting lists. Under pressure from her mother, Gia entered another rehab program. This time at Eagleville Hospital, just outside Philly. But this wasn't about saving her career anymore. This was about survival. And in that quiet, stripped-down place, far from studios and flashbulbs, Gia started telling the truth. But here's what makes it even more heartbreaking. She was still trying. She enrolled in a cinematography program, started talking about film school. She got clean. For real, 7 months. She took a job at a jeans store in a suburban mall. She tried to build a quiet life, one without makeup chairs, editors, or headlines. So, what changed? By the end of 1986, her body started failing. Strange rashes, pain in her feet, flakes in her ears. The doctors didn't know what to call it, but Gia did. She had been clipping newspaper articles, reading every report. She knew what was coming. She told her mom, "Mommy, I really have something wrong with me." Kathleen didn't believe her. No one wanted to believe it. But on Memorial Day, Gia overdosed again. This time, unintentionally. She was rushed to Warminster General Hospital, barely conscious. That's where the truth caught up. Gia was diagnosed with AIDS. The diagnosis hit like a death sentence. It was 1986. AIDS was still considered a gay man's disease, misunderstood, feared, stigmatized. Gia became one of the first well-known women, and one of the only supermodels, to be diagnosed publicly. She was transferred to Hahnemann University Hospital in Philadelphia. Her condition deteriorated fast. Doctors wore protective suits just to enter her room. Staff wiped down her phone after every use. Dr. Wilbur Oakes, who treated her, later said she was one of the very first AIDS patients we had. Certainly the first woman. By the time she arrived, her personality was strange. She looked like she'd been through hell. And on November 18, 1986, Gia Carangi died from AIDS-related complications. She was just 26. But here's the part that still stings. No one from the fashion world came to her funeral. Not one photographer, not one agent, not one editor. The same industry that had celebrated her, profited from her, and depended on her, completely disappeared the moment she became inconvenient, dangerous, unmarketable. So here's the question. Did they forget her? Or did they just want to pretend she never existed? The only person from fashion who reached out afterward was Francesco Scavullo. He sent a mass card. He said he was heartbroken. Even as her life was falling apart, Scavullo said, "Gia never missed a shoot with him. Most girls fade," he said. Gia disappeared at her peak. But Gia didn't disappear. Not really. In fact, in the years after her death, her legend only grew. Maybe it was because she left too soon. Or maybe it was because no one wanted to admit what the industry had done to her. It was easier to blame Gia than to confront the system. Easier to whisper junkie than to ask what she was trying so hard to numb. Because drugs didn't destroy Gia. They distracted her from the reality that no runway, no paycheck, no camera could fix. A lifetime of feeling unloved. But despite it all, she stayed. She didn't just survive in that industry, she carved out space for others, like Cindy Crawford, who was literally nicknamed Baby Gia when she started. Same eyebrows, same stare, same impact. Gia made androgyny glamorous. She made queerness visible. She gave permission to be different in an industry that only pretended to like edgy. Long before anyone had a term for it, Gia was lesbian chic. And her death? As devastating as it was, it forced a conversation the fashion world had been avoiding. Suddenly, AIDS had a face that didn't fit the stereotype. It couldn't be ignored anymore. So was Gia Carangi a victim of the system, or just too raw for a world built on perfection? Both. She came up in an era that punished emotion, queerness, and addiction. She didn't play by the rules, and she paid for it. But what the industry couldn't erase was the way she changed it. Gia made androgyny desirable, queerness visible, and vulnerability powerful. She didn't pose. She confronted the camera. She didn't imitate trends. She became one, and her influence? Still alive. In 1998, HBO released Gia, the biopic starring a then-rising Angelina Jolie. And it wasn't just another made-for-TV drama. Jolie's performance was raw, electric, almost uncomfortably real. She didn't play Gia, she channeled her. Jolie won a Golden Globe for the role, and in interviews she admitted that portraying Gia changed her. She was so full of life, so honest, so fragile, Jolie said. I fell in love with her. Model Erin Wasson once described Gia as her spirit model. Ruby Rose has cited her as a touchstone for queer visibility in fashion. And even models like Catherine McNeil and Freya Beha Eriksson, gritty, androgynous, magnetic, are often seen as walking in Gia's footsteps. Gia's story gave AIDS a female face. It exposed cracks the industry didn't want to see. And it helped spark movements that fight today for the protections she never had. So ask yourself, was Gia ahead of her time, or was her time just too afraid of someone like her? Drop your thoughts and the names of models who carry that same fearless energy in the comments. Let's talk. And if this story hit you, don't just scroll away. Like, subscribe, and share it. Because Gia's legacy isn't just about fashion. It's about what we risk when we value image over humanity.